Περνάμε στο τελευταίο πάνελ για σήμερα και στο τελευταίο πάνελ του φετινού συνεδρίου με θέμα Greenhousing Challenges and Social Cohesion, το οποίο αγγίζει μία από τις πιο κρίσιμες προκλήσεις της εποχής μας, πώς η πράσινη ενεργειακά αποδοτική και κλιματικά ανθεκτική κατοικία μπορεί να συνδυαστεί με ισχυρούς δεσμούς κοινωνικής συνοχής. Η μετάβαση σε βιώσιμα μοντέλα στέγασης δεν αφορά μόνο την αρχιτεκτονική και τον αστικό σχεδιασμό, αλλά και τον τρόπο με τον οποίο δημιουργούμε δίκαιες, συμπεριληπτικές και ανθεκτικές κοινότητες. Στο πάνελ που θα ακολουθήσει συμμετέχουν κορυφαίες προσωπικότητες της Διεθνούς Αρχιτεκτονικής και Ακαδημαϊκής Κοινότητας. Η καθηγήτρια, κυρία Τερέζα Ταμπόας Βελέιρο, της Διεθνούς Ένωσης Αρχιτεκτόνων, Αντιπρόεδρος Ευρώπης. Ο καθηγητής Μάρτιν Τραχόφσκι, του Πανεπιστημίου της Σλοβακίας, Αντιπρόεδρος της Διεθνούς Ακαδημίας Αρχιτεκτονικής. Ο ακαδημαϊκός καθηγητής κύριος Νίκος Φιντικάκης, Αντιπρόεδρος της Διεθνούς Ακαδημίας Αρχιτεκτονικής και πρώην Αντιπρόεδρος της Διεθνούς Ένωσης Αρχιτεκτόνων. Και ο καθηγητής Jerzy Grochulski, Αντιπρόεδρος της Διεθνούς Ένωσης Αρχιτεκτόνων. Επίσης, συντονίζει ο συνάδελφός μου, ο κύριος Γιώργος Αλίμωνος.
Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Αντιλαμβάνομαι την κόπωση και την αγωνία να χαιρετήσουμε τον κύριο Υπουργό, αλλά θα ήθελα να πάρουμε τις θέσεις μας. Θα μου επιτρέψετε από σεβασμό στους καλεσμένους μας, αφού σας καλωσόρισα και αφού δώσω ένα μπράβο στον εαυτό μου που κατάφερα να έρθω μέσα στην Αθήνα με την κίνηση στην ώρα μου, να πάμε στα αγγλικά, ούτως ώστε να καταλαβαίνουν και οι καλεσμένοι μας. So, thank you very much for joining us. This is the last panel, and I know from the big events that the event that goes last is the most important. So let's brag ourselves that we are the most important event of the whole, a very important conference. So we are talking about sustainability. We are talking about architecture. In a sense, I want, if we can, go beyond the technical and reach the philosophical part of your industry, of your, not science, of your art. Let's face it, architecture is an art. Mr. Trump doesn't agree, but we don't care. We haven't voted for him. So, gentlemen, you will allow me, starting with ladies.
So, thanks.
Professor Veleiro, what do you think we can expect from architecture, especially in a time that even architecture is being used to suffocate anything artistic and philosophical?
Well, first of all, I want to thank the TMEDE for the invitation to come to this excellent conference. It's an honor because I was attending during the whole day, and we had excellent panels, some of the ministries with interesting speeches about, for example, the last one about digital transition. So thanks so much to Presidente McKenna, no? The President McKenna. So the question, are you making me an interesting question? What can the architects make for the world today? Everything, because we need to change the approach. We need to change the approach. Until now, the last 30 years or even more, we were self-absorbed in the aesthetic objects. We need to look more through the window and less to the mirror. We need to understand what is happening, what is surrounding us at this moment, because we have different challenges. Many challenges, for example, the climate crisis, 40% more or less is because the building sector. So we need to reframing even some of our approaches to the different fields in which one we are involved. But first of all, as in this image, these professionals at the heart of cities and regional in transition, we need to be as the best filmmakers. We have to have the long shot to understand the whole, and then the close-up to understand the details. And we have many questions, We are here in the birthplace of the greatest philosophers. We as architects, we need to questioning everything, even to questioning even our profession. And we need to look beyond, as you said before, we need to look beyond. We need to be putting the humans in the center, to rethink our profession, to rethink territorial planning, to rethink the urban planner, everything. Like this image, we are architecture plus people. Is that? Thank you.
Taking from the first answer, I would like to go to Professor Grochulski. Yeah. And ask you, we live in a time that everything is highlighted in an Excel spreadsheet and everything has a credit score. How you can explain to politicians and to lawmakers that in the cities we have people that they based their life in the dream and in the hope? How you can merge this over-realistic approach, over-technocratic approach with the real approach? If we don't have a dream, we don't have a life.
Yeah. Thank you for your question and for the invitation, but I would like to thanks also for your introductional speech, because you touch the problem of the philosophy of designing, not only database things. And for this reason, I would like to say something about the colors, because your tie is very colored, and we discussed about the green energy, blue water problems, about the transport. Usually we use the black color in this case, and about the services we use the red color. But I think that the role of the architects is to collect all these things and arrange kind of the rainbow. And because of this reason, I said something about your tie, and now I am trying to, because your tie is like a rainbow, so you can collect a resume of the previous speeches. And I think that answering to question that the architects are on the position which can collect all the knowledge given by experts, and with them as a kind of one team arrange the answer for the question. But what's important, in my opinion, is to put the question, not to answer, because in answer we can arrange, we can do a mistake. When we can put the exact question, it will be easier to cover the problems and show to our governments, local governments and state governments that with common power we can solve the problem. And for this reason, I would like to inform you that all of you that in next year Congress, as our President Regina mentioned, it will be held in Barcelona in mid of 2026. We will try to answer, to put the question, and let me read main 6 questions given by this Congress. The first one is, how can architecture embrace ecological coexistence? What form of meanings and poetics can we engage with our everyday practice? How can values be embedded in transition from matter to construction? How can we design politics of space that activate interpersonal relationship? What actions can arise from a deeper awareness of global and local interplays? And the last one, within post-extravist proximity policies, which cycles can be specially produced? If we can put this question, we arrange and invite all of the experts, not only architects, and give and try to give the answer which cover the problems we have in everyday lives.
Before I go to Professor Grochulski, I have to say that I am in communication, but you are the best communication. You use your first question to promote something that will happen next year, if I understood. Fair enough. I agree with you. I will do the same. Professor, we are in the point that we pose the questions.
Yes.
And in this conference, one of the mantra of the conference is that we set the questions because we want to approach the answers. Do you think that architecture and in general anything that touches upon art, science, and outcome, as is architecture, as is engineering, can give real answers that society will understand? Is it possible?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for the question. I really hope that our mission is to try to give a way how to architects and the society will collaborate. And this is the way we may have questions. One of the basic tools is to understand a community where you are. Yesterday evening I have been walking a little bit in the street here and in the market, and there is a small market here, and local people were dancing. They were not in the costume, in traditional costume for the tourists. They were for themselves. They were for amusing themselves. And this is the importance, to go to the people, to look at the people, to understand, to have the empathy. And this is also to understand, to use the materials, local materials. Therefore, I would just give you a small example. I'm coming from the small city, well, mid-sized city, 250,000 people. It's not a very small city. And there are 3 examples we made how to refurbish, how to remodulate the buildings. One of these is a traditional hotel. It was a city hotel. And we have been asked, well, we have a competition, we run the competition, and this is the transformation in the surroundings with the really hotel that serves for the people. Or the construction which are used as the construction they have been used for the spa in our country. We added the porches, we added some additions. We added the swimming pool indoor. You see the entrance. And I really think that our mission is to cooperate with local people to improve and to forward what is important for the local community in order that the politician will understand and the people will understand what we would like to. The other is a church. In previous period, in socialist period, the churches was abandoned in the socialist countries. After the 1990, of course, there was an amazing trend to make those churches. We went to competition and we did 2 parish churches, of course, by the local materials and with the shape that transform the local community and local housing estates to the much better environment, even if it is small inside. But you see the construction. it is important that we architects are not only going to the people, but we are every day on the building site. We are discussing with the contractor. We have to be there and to explain. And this is the construction we finally reached for our community. You see the use of very thin wood, not using too much, not gaspillage, but to see the local authority. There is another third one example, also used by the roof of the wood. We are concentrating very much on this because ut intres sub tectum meum. And this is the use of not only wood, but all materials are cooperated together as the olive from the olive wood as the local stone. So this is, I think, the answer that we have to really concentrate.
Thank you very much. And I take from your answer the use of local material that coincide with the social, with the society. They see material that they remind them. And I will go to Professor Findikakis and ask you, how easy is it for Greece and Europe, but mainly for Greece, to move from the folklore to modern, which is like an exaggeration because from folklore we went to modern, and reach a balance in the real? I mean, we are lucky enough to be in a fantastic building, that it was so much respected in its renovation, but at the same time has the modern elements. And today's now in this old renovated building with all the modern materials, we discuss the most modern questions and we give the most progressive answers. So in a sense, how difficult is to go into a balance in the post-globalization era to find the new aesthetic that will be inclusive, sustainable and green?
Αναρωτιέμαι αν πρέπει να μιλήσω αγγλικά ή ελληνικά.
I would say English for us.
Yes, I would do. In respect to my friends. Yes, but most of the people are Greeks. So I have to say some words in Greek and some words in English. Thank you, Dinos Makedos, for respecting the role of architects. And I'm sure that this will be transferred to your son, Yorgos, who is going to become architect after several years. Ο Ντίνος δεν έβαλε τυχαία τελευταίο το πάνελ αυτό, διότι ήθελε να αναδείξει το ρόλο των αρχιτεκτόνων στην ερώτηση που μου έγινε. There is no globalization. I reject the term globalization. And there is neither glocalization. There is only localization. Why? Because during the years, from the prehistory until now, architecture is the sum total of man's responses to the challenges of the environment. Δεν ξέρω πώς είναι καλή η μετάφραση, όχι. Αλλά η αρχιτεκτονική είναι το σύνολο των αποκρίσεων του ανθρώπου στις προκλήσεις του περιβάλλοντος. Έχετε λοιπόν σήμερα εδώ ένα group, μια παρέα, που αποτελείται, doesn't matter, what I'm saying it's not, που αποτελείται από δύο αντιπροέδρους της Διεθνούς Ένωσης Αρχιτεκτόνων, την Τερέζα και τον Τζέρσι, και 2 αντιπροέδρους της Διεθνούς Ακαδημίας Αρχιτεκτονικής. And here is the difference of the roles of the organization concerning architecture in order to respond to the stupidity said by Trump about the future of architecture and architects. And I'm happy because before you have here also the president of the International Academy of Architecture, Desideri, and the president of the International Union of Architects, which is our friend Regina Gontier. She's here. And yesterday you have had an excellent speech from Professor Antonio Riverso. Everybody knows Antonio Riverso. And Peter Drege, who is representing the Eurosolar. What does mean? Does mean the great role of the sun in architecture in the society. So we have to discuss about the possibilities of a metalaxis of architecture in the built environment, and the role of architects and engineers towards zero emissions urban environment for the climate restoration. And this is primarily done through the urban design. And the urban design is the result of several laws, for which laws never the architects are asked. And I'm sure what I'm saying about this. They should get information from the Greek Association of Architects. They have a primary role. Nobody asked us, never, about the urban design laws and prescriptions. So I believe, before we have had the previous mayor, the Minister Papasteriou, he was previous mayor of Trikala. I worked with him and he respected a lot the urban design philosophy. So I hope that this, as a last panel, will provide you some information in order to say that President Makedos was right to leave this as a last panel.
I couldn't agree more with you about the right character of the choices of the president in any aspect. But I want to take from your answer that nobody asked us, and I want to go to the second round of question and ask if somebody or anybody doesn't ask the architects. Is it the case that maybe the architects are very much preoccupied of their commercial role instead of investing in the society? I'm not saying it's true. I'm play the devil's advocate. And I'll go to Professor Veleiro. You have met and you have prepared the next generation of architects. When you ask a young architect why you want to become an architect, what they say, why they want to become architects?
It's a good question, because most of the young people, the young architects, at least in Spain, at least in Europe, most of them will be answering, we want to a better world. We want to be agents for the change. So we must be in the center of the decisions. If we want to change, if we want to be agents for the change, we must take into account for the policymakers, for the different people who is involved in policy, it's very important to have our opinion. For that is important too, for our side. We need to reframe our language. We need to shatter certain narratives. For these uncertainty times, we need to change the narratives. Because if we talk about the problems that people have, for example, about the public spaces during the summertime because the climate, the increase of the temperature, if we talk and we give answers for these public spaces, if we give answers for the better housing policies, then people, the citizens, will need us. This morning, for example, and our president, Regina Gontier, who is just now here, she was talking even in a moment because it's one of her major concerns about artificial intelligence. We need to shatter this narrative to talk about smart cities, and what is smart cities? We need smart citizens, not smart cities. So this is true. So we need to shatter even the narrative with the cities. We need to rescale the cities because the scale of these big cities, as much bigger are the cities, less contact and less knowledge they have about the damage in the environment, in the ecosystems. If you have another scale of the cities in this territorial planning, then you are more conscious about the damage in the ecosystems. So we need to shatter this narrative that all the people, 50% will live in big cities. No, perhaps it's the wrong answer to the problem of the population today. We need to rethink the territory also. So if us as architects, if we understand the current moment of the history, then we will give the right answers. I'm sure. So we are in the center of the change, but only if we understand the moment and we give the right answers for the people, with the people in the center, with these holistic visions, with this holistic approach, the best filmmakers, as I said before. Thank you.
I think that your students must be very lucky having you, all of you, but this answer I really enjoy, and I'll take some of what you said. How feasible is to have smart citizens in cities that they don't respect their needs? Professor Grochulski, to you.
Yes, I think that we have come back to the school and start our discussion with younger colleagues in profession in the future, but with younger people, that the value of the space is very special kind, because we have to share the value of the space with other people. If we convince pupils in the schools that the space around them should be protected by themselves, then we'll achieve good collaborators in our professional work to convince also the politicians that we have add a value in our professional work to the value we have got from the history. Because in case when we understand that this kind of value and also natural landscape value should be under the consideration, is the value which we should protect and give to the next generation, then we can find in our students, as you asked in the previous question, a collaborator in this fight. we have to collect their knowledge, but the first step is to give them the knowledge about the value of the space, and then invite them to the common play for the future generation. Yes.
In a sense, you're talking about the respect of the space.
Yes.
Because if you understand that we're living in cities that we have common space,
yeah.
In a sense, going from the idea of co-living to
yeah.
selfishness living,
yeah.
where we say that we can have this and that when the others have nothing of the above. But yet again, someone who doesn't follow the architectural trends, someone who is not familiarized with what's going on, it will say that 50 years ago, the biggest dream of a family is to have a house. Yeah. Now, 20 years ago, the biggest dream of a young couple is to have a flat. And in modern cities, you know what is the biggest dream, me included? To have a parking. So the whole interaction, the whole metadata of reality has changed. And I feel that the only way to stop this decay of lack of philosophy that has been introduced to a credit cost and to Excel spreadsheet, it comes from the university to the society and from the society to business, not vice versa. Professor Grochulski, what do you think of this? Is it possible to change the flow of behavioral pattern so we can correct the mistakes and also adapt to the new Greek initiatives that we need to incorporate in order to have sustainable cities?
Perfect question. And especially in that conference. This is exactly the case how to turn it. This is exactly the place where we cooperate with politicians, with engineers, with you, with press, and we are trying to show what is our mission, and we are trying to observe and understand what is the mission of the others, and to distribute this conference to the politicians, to the people, even to the people. I've been here and I have really listened as an architect, many financial questions or results or proposals. Well, before I am caring of the finances only if my client has the money. But now I really understand what is the complexity of this problem. And those conferences are very important to be distributed in between the community.
Professor Fidikakis, we have 4 minutes and 38 seconds. I give you the 4 minutes for your answer. I'll keep the 30 seconds for closing. So the last question is for you. Greece has made tremendous development through the last 10 years. But at the same time, it seems that we have lost our special attribute, the philosophical attribute in everything we do in our cities. You drive your car and you go to some cities and you feel that you are somewhere else. How we can find on the university level the idea of persuading young people that cities are home and we have a collective responsibility to make it viable, sustainable, and green?
Because we have to get as a, let's say, epigram what was said in the past by the philosophers, that the conceivable world remains unchangeable, but the perceptible world, is what you are saying, is under a constant flow. In order to reestablish the relation between the conceivable and the perceptible world is needed an 18th Sustainable Development Goal. We have 17 up to now. No one of these goals which refers to our living, no one refers to architecture. So we have to promote and to establish an 18th Sustainable Development Goal towards the United Nations. And this, Dinos Makedos, I propose you to be your request, of engineers the request, to have an 18th Sustainable Development Goal towards a better future, towards redefining the horizons of the future, by introducing architecture as his main role from the antiquity unto now in order to make better our future.
Thank you very much, all of you. I would love to have not even more, one, but two more rounds, but time is a killer. I have to thank you all. And I have to thank President Makedos and TMEDE. If you haven't realized, the last 2 days, it wasn't just another conference that it had very nice catering and very nice speeches. It was an opportunity to have a 2-day session with our soul and our consciousness. You can take what we discussed here, think about it, give it to your students, to the society, and next year, based on what we discussed now, we can see if we are correct or if we touch upon reality. Thank you very much. Σας ευχαριστούμε όλους, ευχαριστούμε το TMEDE. Και να μην ξεχνάμε ότι αν δεν ξεκινήσεις από τη φιλοσοφία, δεν φτάνεις ποτέ στην πραγματικότητα. Να είστε καλά, καλές γιορτές σε όλους. My lady.